Hello everyone, welcome along to Live on Air this Sunday evening, the Reverend Sekeli. We've also got, Reverend Sekeli has got a son by the name of Sekeli Jr. Give us a wave, Sekeli Jr. back there. Great, excellent. And we've got two other participants from Wesley Youth Leaders. Would they like to just say who they are?
Hi, I'm Manandi. Hi, I'm Sala.
Hi, Sala. Welcome along as youth leaders. Sekeli Jr., I know that you are currently working somewhere in Lower Hutt. Would you just like to say whereabouts you're working?
Just working in the hospital. Work as a linen officer, liaison officer. So basically just delivering linen around the hospital.
I'm currently pursuing studies in medicine.
Right.
And I'm a student nurse.
Okay, great. Reverend Sekeli, would you like to please tell our audience what it's like working as a beginning Methodist minister down in Wellington? Is it exciting for you?
Yes, Dr. Bell. Yes, it's exciting and also challenging at the same time. This is in regards to the contextual situation according to our tradition. Since we are Fijians living in New Zealand, there's sort of culture change that we live with every day. So for us as Fijians living in New Zealand, we have a bit of a difference in our worship settings, like we used to do back home in Fiji. So for me as a presbyter, since this is my first year, yes, I found it very challenging.
Sekeli Jr., you have a question too, but it's not quite so much about worship, it's more about education. Would you like to put your question to us?
Yeah, my dad, since he's a minister, he went to school up in the Trinity College in Auckland. Yeah, and all I hear is the School of Theology. For me, I still don't know what theology is or what. Yeah, if someone can explain what theology is.
I think that's a great question, Sekeli Jr. The first thing I'd say is that your father was, in my opinion, an outstanding student, because he asked and made comments in a kind of a way that I wish I'd been him asking those questions when I was a theology student, because he started to understand what theology is very early on, and it's not something that we can easily grasp. Theology is a word that means talking about God, and when we talk about God, we have to take a few steps backward from what we think we know about God, because God may come in different ways to different people. And this brings us back to the question of culture. What God is for you three young people may not be the same as what God is for an age group like myself. And what God is might be completely different for a group of young people in China. So all these are ways of trying to get into the question of who is God, what does God mean to us in a personal and a practical way. Because we don't want to talk about a whole lot of theory that doesn't mean anything. We want to know, how did God influence Sekeli Sr.? How did God influence me? How's God influencing you? And when you think of it that way, our God talk is from many different voices, across many different cultures, across many different communities. And as we come together to do this God talk, we can't make assumptions about what this group thinks or that person thinks. We actually have to ask, what's the sharing of your story about God? And what's my story about God? And how do we put those together? Now, what a theological education involved for Reverend Sir Kelly was doing a lot of study over a lot of years with quite a few different teachers. And so he will have been exposed to a range of ideas of God talk. Some of the God talk will have been about the Bible. Some of the God talk will have been about church history. Some of the God talk will have been about what makes people tick. How do we get along with people, especially when they've got times of trouble and crisis? And that's called pastoral theology, looking after one another. And there are many different ways of talking about God, and many different aspects to talking about God. And a theology education is pulling all of these strands together and weaving them into making the person more aware inside of themselves about who God is for them, and making them more aware of how God is for other people.
Okay, yeah. My question is, like, what is spirituality? In everyday life, it's referenced, and I would just like to know, what is the essence of it? What is the essence of spirituality? No way.
Look, I'm really impressed by that question, because that's actually at the heart of why should I be a Christian, or why should I be anything if I don't have spirituality, you say, referenced all the way through many aspects of life. And I think, therefore, we've got to try and understand very deeply what it is to be spiritual. And to me, to be spiritual is not to be holy. Holiness may be an offshoot of being spiritual, or an offshoot of spirituality. For me, the essence of spirituality is to understand and to embrace the Christ that I see in the other person. So when I look at another person, am I going to see an enemy? Am I going to see a friend? Am I going to see the devil, or am I going to see God? When I look at another person, am I going to see what their needs are, or am I going to project out what my needs are? When I put all of those things together, the essence of spirituality, what is it to be spiritual, is to be living for the other and then finding myself in that living. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, that was very clear.
Thank you. And now I've got a question for the young people that has come from Rill in the studio audience, who's asking, how hard has it been for Fijian youth in New Zealand to make the transition from school to church? I think she means the secular education setting as opposed to living out your faith in a church. Has that been difficult for Fijian youth?
For me, Dr. Bell, for me, as I can see,
I think it's not that hard for them, especially nowadays children, the youth. I was sharing with the men's fellowship how different time has from our youth days to the days these guys are living in, like today. I think this is in terms of what they face education-wise, socializing. Yes, I'm going into worship in church. I think they've got their own explanation, which for us elders are quite yeah, it's a bit difficult for us to understand. It's within them. Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting answer, because the young people, they're going to school as part of their everyday normal life. It's just going on at school, and then it's polytech, university work. And so that part of life is natural. It's coming into the worship situation that's the the sort of slightly different thing, and that's where the transition is probably, you know, why is church boring as compared to school, or why is it different compared to school? Well, the last thing that I want to do in Live on Air tonight is just to say thank you to the youth group leaders for doing this, and for also being prepared to be involved in World Refugee Day with the screening of the film Warehouse. I know that the youth leaders didn't think they wanted to make a zine, but I really want them to get their Sunday school to make the zines and hand them around the congregation, so that you've got an invitation from your Sunday school via your youth group leaders to the elders coming in to watch this film. I'm very grateful to the Reverend Sakeli. He's already signed up to the film. And I think you can show it at any time during 1 week from World Refugee Day. We're going to show it at our church on World Refugee Day, and I'm going to, in the week ahead, ask some young people to make the zines to hand around to their elders. So at this stage, there are a number of New Zealand churches that are getting involved with this. I think my friend Stuart McAdam said there's somewhere between 10 and 15. So that's a tremendous start to getting more people aware of the problems of associated with refugees. So having said all of that, we'll draw our meeting to a close. And hey, thank you very much, guys. And I do hope that, yeah, and I hope you are able to go back into the church hall and have a really good wind up for the rest of the evening. So thank you and good night.